Hello garden guys and gals, it's Steph with Tiny's Garden. Welcome back. Today I'm going to take you on a tour of my raised bed cut flower garden, which the front part is right over here. It has been really hot here in the Midwest in Zone 5B in the Chicago suburbs the past week, and it's supposed to be hot again this next week, but I have had some things put on a lot of growth. And I'm actually going to harvest some things tonight too. So I thought I'd take you along for the ride to see the difference between now and the one I took about 3 weeks ago. So let's get the tour started. Gotta jazz it up sometimes, you know? So for those of you who are new here, this is my first big year doing this scale of cut flowers, meaning 14 raised beds. Last year I had a tiny cut flower garden that I did and I loved it and it took off and it did really well. I'll put a picture up on the screen for you. And now I'm just trying to expand and see what I can accomplish because we're in a woodland. If you look around me, there's trees everywhere. Trees, trees. And some more trees. Little bit of sunlight back there. And back to some more trees. So that is my biggest challenge, but I've learned a lot already this year. So as I go, I'm kind of going to tell you some things that I would do differently and maybe move around for next year. And hopefully that might help you as well. So let's do it. Get your dancing pants on. You know I like to dance every once in a while. Let's do this. Here is our first bed. So this was the first bed that was planted out of all of these. And you can see here is where I've got some blooming. This is the Costa apricot, which is just stunning. I absolutely love it. Definitely time to harvest that. And then down here, I've also got one that's getting ready to open. This was planted a little later. That is an Opus 3 early bronze. And in the middle here, I've been a little disappointed with me. Now these through here are my only Snapdragons that are not from Johnny's Seeds. I've got, which is I believe a botanical interest, and this is the Day and Night Snapdragon, which I think is pretty, but boy, are they tiny. If I was using these in bouquets, it's pretty tiny, not a lot to work with. And then over here, these are the Rembrandt Snapdragon, which is from Hudson Valley Seed Company. And they're finally putting on some blooms too. And I do think they're gonna be pretty. Here we can kind of see it's got some yellow in it. But again, I'm just a little underwhelmed because look at these compared to these and these. And here is the bed right above the one I just showed you, and my goodness gracious, how pretty are those? This is the Chantilly Bronze with white Snapdragon, and boy, are they ever stunning. I'm wrong. I think it's just Chantilly Bronze. This is one of the things I'll do differently next year. Plant more Chantilly. I'll put a picture up on the screen of actually a year ago today. I had a ton of Snapdragons already blooming, including the Madame Butterfly Red and Madame Butterfly Bronze. So more Madame and more Chantilly next year. Holy smokes, were they ever gorgeous and beautiful. And our weather last year was much more cooperative. So my sweet peas, my Snapdragons are just a little bit behind where they were last year, but for sure putting more Chantilly on the list for next year. And then you can see the top of this bed. See how all of them are leaning? That's because they're reaching for the sun. Every single one of these on the end here. And this is, let me double check the tag before I say the wrong thing. Yes, Opus 3 early bronze. But it's kind of funny because their coloring is pretty much almost the same as this one, the Chantilly bronze, except it's a regular Snapdragon form. So that's kind of interesting. But they definitely coordinate in the same bed well together. Now, if you haven't seen my pinched versus not pinched, I did not pinch a lot of these in the beginning of the spring just to see the difference. And now I've gone in and pinched them. You can see the ones that are shorter have multiple branches. The ones that are taller have not been pinched, but they are ready earlier. I think next year I'm going to do closer spacing because there's a lot of room here, and even when they're all branched out, I think I can go closer. I was shooting for 9 inches here, but I would have a much higher yield if I pushed them more like 6, I think. So comment below and let me know if you do cut flowers and raised beds at all, what your spacing is for your Snapdragons, because I think I'm missing a lot of production here. And on to the next row here. First, we have our Bells of Ireland. These guys are finally getting bigger. I've never grown them before, but if you look, I can see here inside the bells are starting to form. Can you hear the bells ringing? They're coming. Here's an example. On this one, it's got several branches. So there's some very big ones here, but then this branch here has some. This branch here is budding with them, and all the way around. So that's very interesting. I'm gonna have plenty of these once they come to fruition. I noted this in the last tour, but I've got this whole bed. There's one Surinth over there. And then I've got this bed, and these are much smaller, but they are starting to put their bells on. But I don't think I need that much Bells of Ireland. Though, oh my gosh, look how beautiful that is. That's interesting. These bells almost seem bigger, but the plant is smaller. Huh. So that's one revelation. Probably just one bed or half a bed of Bells of Ireland next year. And then coming in hot over here, finally, the Bachelor Buttons are a-blooming. I've got the Classic Fantastic, which this one and this one are from, more the blue hues. And then I've also got Classic Romantic, which is pink hues and this type of white. There's a pink one I'll show you. Pretty, pretty. Those are finally coming on, and there's buds everywhere on them, so that's exciting. These get very, very tall, and they should self-seed for next year, and I think they should overwinter here. But again, I mean, I'll see as the summer continues and goes on as I keep cutting off of them. I think I could budge some more space on here, but maybe if they self-seed, they'll scoot farther in together. We'll find out. And lastly here, this row, these are the 2 beds that I've switched from cool flowers. So Iceland Poppies up there, and in here was stock. There's just a few left, but now I've changed it to some Texas Plume Celosia, Sunday Gold Celosia, and a little bit of Hibiscus Amaranth. And then if we come this way, here's my Zinnias or Zinnias that are looking really good. Now this was the last batch that I planted from seed, and you can tell they look really healthy. These look much healthier than the ones that I planted in the back. And the ones I planted in the back are ones that I essentially tried to save from dying. And it worked, but they're definitely not as healthy. The foliage is not as green and not as strong looking. So you'll notice that in a second. But I can't wait for these Zinnias to get going so I can cut them and just have a gorgeous display of blooms in here. And the Iceland Poppies are still going. I haven't torn them out yet. They won't like the heat, and they didn't like the heat that we had, but I just can't, you guys. Look at this bloom. That's my favorite color of them too. So, so pretty. And you'll see my little tags are in there. The dahlias are planted. I've got one here that's putting on some growth. And the rest were just planted this week. So none of those have come above the soil yet, but they'll get going here soon. Speaking of a dahlia, there's one of my dahlias in the pots. And do you remember the crepe myrtle, the red crepe myrtle that I planted in this pot last year as an experiment to see if it would grow, because it usually doesn't grow in a zone that's as cold as mine in 5B. And look at it. I overwintered it in my garage. I'm so proud of myself. It's growing. And let me walk quickly past all my new purchases for a different video. You'll have to guess. You'll have to guess what those are. Now we're in the back by the greenhouse, and I want to show you my Mahogany Splendor Hibiscus. I did get it in the ground back here, planted in a group of 3, and it's putting on a lot of growth. So I'm excited to see that really compete with the mint that's just out of control over here. Say hi, Axel. Now on to these back beds. Now I'll start with the bed that the other zinnias, the ones that I've saved, but they were really in dire straits. So overall, I'm really happy that they've come back as healthy as they have. And I'll try and find a picture of that and put it on the screen, but my goodness. And there's a bud. I should really pinch that off. But I might see how it blooms. I'm such a sucker for that. Just pinch them, Stephanie. Do as I say, not as I do. But they're all doing pretty good, except the Cinderella Peach. Ugh. Not looking as strong, which is a bummer. That's the one I was really looking forward to. You can see the size difference. But you can tell the ones in the front are a bit healthier, especially when it comes to that row. Then we've got Cosmos back here. I also need to pinch those as well. Oh, hey girls! The Zinnias is putting on some growth here. Some of them are still small, but some are bigger, which is exciting. In these back beds, you'll notice my soil level, not real high. I need to get more soil put in here next year. Ideally, I would have it all the way to the top, but first year trials, we trial and we err. So that's a finding, but I'm happy with the Zinnias. Can't wait for those to shoot some blooms. And then in the back here, my goodness, my darling. Hey, beautiful. These back here are my cherry caramel flax, and they're starting to put on some length. They were really tiny, like these in the back, and these have been pinched recently, so you can see that they're starting to put on more branching. But the ones that I pinched earlier have much longer stems, which is exciting. So these gals are just coming along beautifully, and they smell delightful. I really like her. I might do more of her next year. Axel, you are a tripping hazard, my love. Tripping hazard. But I love you. I love your tenacity. You love the garden too, don't you? Here's another bed of the Snapdragons. Same thing, spacing wise. Now this is a bed that I didn't pinch, and I do have some blooms coming on, but I just feel like there's so much space. I gotta put them closer together next year, don't you think? Then back here we have 3 apple blossom, and down there, that Rudbeckia has some bug damage on it. I need to sprinkle something on that. These, I believe, are more Sahara. And then my Dusty Miller. Now I want you to look at the size of my Dusty Miller, because I'm going to show you something here in a second. Something I'm learning this year. And it's decent, but I've got something elsewhere that's much larger. And then I've got Foxglove in the back here. Here is another example of the soil level. I need more soil in here. They're starting to get shaded out. Need more soil. I'm gonna show you the dahlia beds in a second, but let me show you what I'm talking about, because I think I have a spot that gets more full sun and definitely more intense sun than some of these beds. So I think I may need to move some things next year. Let's go take a look. Okay, sorry for the sun, but this is my point exactly. Walking through the gate here, we come to the outside. Sorry, you're gonna see my shadow for a second here. Outside fence panel. And then the raised beds are back behind there. This is the west side of the house. And I've just got some planters back here. And here's the thing, everybody. In these planters, of course, there's some pansies. So those are done for pretty much because they get so much sun. Now look here. See what this is? Oh, hello. Hello, huge dusty Miller. Oh, it's like you get way more sun here or something. Nice to meet you. Oh, and another one. Wow, look at the size of those blooms. You see the difference here, folks? That's a big difference. I mean, look at the Snapdragon height. They're blown over and they're tired because it's been so hot, but you think this gets more sun? And it is almost 7 o'clock at night and it's still sunny on this area. I'm sorry this picture is gonna be really sunny, but I'm trying to get you to see my point. I need to put some raised beds back here because they get more sun. That's what I think I'm getting the conclusion of, and it's gonna be kind of a little bit of a pain to move, I would say 2 or 3 of those from the back. But you can see the difference in how the plants produce. And my Dusty Miller is loving life that I planted after I planted the ones in the boxes. And you saw what size the boxes were. So, Mama's got to make some moves next year. You live and you learn. You live and you learn. For anyone who was wondering about my gladiolus in the crates, here they are. They're doing good. Work so far. Waiting on the blooms. Okay, now let's come back here to the queens. Here's my little giggles you saw from the last video. It is growing. And then the other ones are looking pretty good. I've got more growth over here on this side, which is heavily shaded now. We're getting toward dark. And these are going to be ready to pinch very soon. I'm no fool with the dahlias. I will pinch them. Holy smokes, look at that bug damage. I gotta put some Captain Jack's bug stuff out. Yikes. I wonder why that one. Chickacum del Bluma? My goodness. But everything else looking pretty good in here. And then around to the back of the greenhouse, this calendula is a workhorse. There's flashback mix and also touch of red buff. They really are putting on a lot of blooms, and it's also a pest attracting plant. So any aphids or things like that should latch onto these instead of those sweet peas. The sweet peas are growing, y'all. Again, everything is a bit behind last year, but I am able to harvest some of them now, including those heirloom blue ones. But I'm noticing the heirloom blue ones look better in the spring. But I've got a whole bunch of Snapdragons in here that are gonna burst soon. I don't see any budding yet, but they have put on a lot of growth. And then back here, we've got some Bupleurum. And also every other, I went Bupleurum and Larkspur. Larkspur I got in later, but she's got some blooms on her. And we come to the next thing. All in here was my Ranoculus. I'm ordering my Ranoculus from a different place next year because it came so late. Too late, but that by the time I got it in the ground, there was just no hope for it. It did spring up, but now it's just too hot that it's all gone away, and it's pretty much all weeds in here. Excuse me, except for Sweet William, which is right here that my nanny and my son planted. It was on its way out, and now it's actually looking pretty good. But that brings me to the next point. I might go in here next year through the front and do a biennial, because a biennial pretty much bridges the gap between all the spring blooms like tulips, ranunculus, anemones, and the summer blooms that I'm waiting on, like my snapdragons and sunflowers, things like that. So this I'm not sure what I'm going to do with right now. It looks terrible. But again, this is real life, people. Sometimes all of our gardens don't have everything buttoned up. So I'm still deciding, do I throw some sunflowers in here? Do I go and buy a couple more dahlias? But they get really big too. So I'm just kind of a little bit, I don't know what, perplexed. And that'll do it for this tour. It's June 18th today, so we could say mid-May raised bed cut flower garden tour. I think, again, everything is a little late this year, but I'm still hopeful that a lot of these will come to a beautiful fruition of blooms and take me into some gorgeous bouquet work that is basically for myself right now. I really don't have a lot of volume, even though it seems like it at this point. Not a lot of volume, so that's one of the reasons I need to tuck more things in, I believe. But thanks for coming on that ride with me. Comment below and let me know what you think I should plant in the front of that tiny cut flower bed. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, subscribe to follow along with all things garden. See you in the next one, everybody. Bye!